والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله. وبعد. We begin in the name of Allah Azza wa Jal by asking Him to send peace and blessings upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and his family. By the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal, we are coming towards the end of Surah An-Nazi'at. This Meccan surah, as you all know, major theme of the Meccan surahs is to remind human beings about the afterlife. To remind human beings that this is not the only life that we will live. That there will be a destination and a home and an entire life, actually, after this one. This is something that, of course, people are not mindful of, that they are not conscious of, and they live as if this is it. As if this is everything in this world. Do what you can, get what you want out of it, because there's nothing else that's going to come after it. But we know, of course, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, over and over again in the Quran, over and over again, especially in these Meccan revelations, is driving the point home to human beings that you have another destination. You have another world that you are working towards. And so as we come to the end of Surah An-Nazi'at, or at least towards the end of Surah An-Nazi'at, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us about this. He says, starting with verse number 34, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فإذا جاءت الطامة الكبرى يوم يتذكر الإنسان ما سعى وبرزت الجحيم لمن يرى فأما من طغى. He says here, therefore, when there comes the great and overwhelming event, طامة, this great overwhelming event. This, of course, the Mufassirin mentioned, is the Day of Judgment. And again, remember, the Jahili Arabs did not have a concept of a Day of Judgment. They didn't even have a concept of an afterlife. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala driving home the point that you may not believe in it, but that event is coming. Just because you don't think it's true does not make it so. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when there comes to them the great and overwhelming event, kubra, right? It's described as something magnificent or beyond almost comprehension. And then he says, يَوْمَ يَتَذَكَّرُ الْإِنسَانُ مَا سَعَى. The day when mankind, when every human being shall remember what they strove for. That's the day that they will remember what they were working for. And this, subhanAllah, brothers and sisters, is a really interesting statement. Because we, in our lives, if we take stock, what is it that we're actually working towards? Are we working towards Jannah? Or are we working towards fulfilling something in this world itself? What's the niyyah? What's the intention behind the things that we are doing? Is it to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or is it to please other than Him? Is it to please our family, our community, our loved ones, or people around us, or the dominant culture around us? What is the intention behind what we are doing? What are we striving for? What are we exerting ourselves for? That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, that on that day, every person will remember what they were fighting for, what they were striving towards. And what does He say about the people after? He says, وَبُرِّزَتِ الْجَحِيمُ لِمَنْ يَرَى. And hellfire will be placed in full view for all to see. For all to see. The disbelievers will see it. The people who rejected the message will see it. The people who, all of mankind. So there's different opinion on this verse. Some scholars say that it's for all to see, includes all of the people. All the believers, non-believers, everybody will see that hellfire is there. Other scholars say that this is specifically for the disbelievers because they rejected it in this world. They rejected and they refused to see the hellfire as something real, and so on the Day of Judgment, it will be shown to them. This is what you rejected this entire time. Again, SubhanAllah, people can be blind in this world to the realities of the next world, but in the next world they can't be blind to it anymore. They will see it for what it is. This is why one of the statements of the Prophet ﷺ was that the hellfire is true. Jannah is true, the hellfire is true, all of it is true. This is truth, as we believe. Even though it's ghaib, it's part of the unseen world, but we know it to be true from the Quran. وَبُرِّزَتِ الْجَحِيمُ لِمَنْ يَرَى. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes who the people are. We're going to see this. فَأَمَّا مَنْ طَغَى. Then for such as those who had transgressed all bounds. Tagha is to go beyond the limits. Tughyan is to go beyond the limits. You know, think of if you have like one of those plastic cups and you filled it with water, right? And you squeeze just a little bit at the bottom of the plastic cup. What happens? The water overflows. That's tughyan. That's to exceed the limit. There's limits that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed on all of us, but there are people who will go beyond those limits of what's acceptable. Right? So here, فَأَمَّا مَنْ طَغَى. Such as those who had transgressed the bounds, then he says, وَآثَرَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا. They preferred the life of this world. They preferred the life of this world. That's what they worked towards. Again, if they had preferred the next world, they would have given up their own desires. They would have said, you know what? I'm not going to do this thing. I'm not going to lie and steal and cheat. I'm not going to do these things that I know are displeasing to Allah. Why? Because I'm working towards something else. I don't get my morality from the general society around me. I get my morality from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what's pleasing to Him and what's not. And so here, they're being told that these are people, however, that prefer this world. They preferred this world and everything in it. The people's opinion about them, the wealth and material things of this world, the whatever they could get from this, that's what they preferred. And they worked towards that. Remember, we're talking about what they strove for. يَوْمَ يَتَذَكَّرُ الْإِنسَانُ مَا سَعَى. Look at that's the day everybody will know what they strove for. He's saying these people, they strove for the dunya. They preferred this world. وَإِنَّ الْجَحِيمَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. For those, the abode will be hellfire. وَإِنَّ الْجَحِيمَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. They will be in the hellfire. Now, there's nothing wrong, brothers and sisters, with working in this world. I want to be clear. We are not ascetics. We don't just want to give up the dunya and go live in a forest somewhere. That's not the point of life. The Prophet ﷺ, he didn't do that. He lived in community. He lived in society. He bettered society around him. So there is a maqsad. There's a purpose and an objective to the life of this world. But we cannot put our desires for this world above what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. We cannot do that. The Prophet ﷺ, he worked to change his community and his society around him, but everything he did was in alignment with what was pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّ الْجَحِيمَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. Their abode will be the hellfire. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he gives us a glimpse about what about those on the Day of Judgment. We talked about those who prefer the life of this world. Then he gives us another example. He says, وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى. As for those who had entertained the fear of standing before their Lord. In other words, they knew eventually they would have to have a hisab before Allah. So they lived their life. They lived their life knowing and fearing this standing, that I'm going to, be careful about what I do because I will have to hold myself to account before Allah. And what else did they do? وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى. And they restrained their souls, their nafs. They restrained their souls from their lower desires. These are people who worked for the pleasure of Allah, restraining their own desires, knowing that they're going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does Allah say about them? فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. That their abode, their ultimate everlasting home is going to be paradise. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst them. You see that, brothers and sisters? Why is it that Jannah is written for them? Because they suppressed their lower desires and they knew that they would stand before Allah and they worked accordingly to that. That's why they have gardens in paradise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's not leaving it saying it's a hopeless cause. Just because Yawm al-Qiyamah is going to be here, it's a hopeless cause. No, not at all. He's saying there are people in this world that can, if they're reorienting themselves to Allah, Allah will reward them for that. He will reward them for that. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ السَّاعَةِ أَيَّانَ مُرْسَاهَا فِيمَ أَنْتَ مِنْ ذِكْرَاهَا إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ مُنْتَهَاهَا. They ask you, this is now, specifically to the Prophet ﷺ, there were people who asked him, they ask you about the hour, the sa'ah. When will it come? Right? The people at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he kept talking about this hellfire, about this day of judgment. So their natural question is, well, when is it going to come? How long do I have to keep preparing myself for this day of judgment? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers, say, they ask you about the day of judgment. When will it come? Why? Fima anta min dhikraha. When are you concerned with the day? Why are you concerned about it? Why are you so worried about when it's going to come? Ila rabbika muntahaha. With your Lord is the limit that is fixed therefore. In other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has knowledge of it. You don't need to worry about it. You don't need to worry about when it's going to come. Because you have one life that you're going to live in this world. And so as soon as you die, that's it. There's nothing else you can do beyond that. So whatever you need to work for the next world, do it now. Don't worry about when that hour is coming. Don't worry about when that hour is coming. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says about the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مُنذِرُ مَنْ يَخْشَاهَا. You are just a warner for those that fear that day. You're a warner. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he came to give us warning, to remind us, don't live your life heedlessly in ghafla. Don't live it heedlessly. Live your life with intention, with purpose, knowing that you will have a hisab before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مُنذِرُ مَنْ يَخْشَاهَا كَأَنَّهُمْ يَوْمَ يَرَوْنَهَا لَمْ يَلْبَثُوا إِلَّا عَشِيَّةً أَوْ ضُحَاهَا. The day they see it, it will be as if they had just lived or tarried but a single evening, or at most until the following morning. When they see the day of judgment, they will feel as if this life, no matter how many decades they lived, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 years, it will feel as if nothing, no time has passed whatsoever. This is why, brothers and sisters, it's very important for us to take advantage of the moments that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us here on earth, not to waste it mindlessly. Imam al-Ghazali says in his famous book, Bidayah wal-Hidayah, the beginning of guidance, that a person should have every hour of his day for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's scheduled out, knowing how they are going to spend it in worship. Whether it's in dhikr and dua, whether it's in striving to work, to maintain, to work for your family and to make sure that they're taken care of, whatever it is, make sure that your days and your time is not spent mindlessly. That it is done with purpose and with intention. Because ultimately, brothers and sisters, no matter how long we live in this world, it's going to be just a few moments that it will seem like for us. Take these moments to our advantage. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fill our time with barakah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the best of this world and the next world and protect us from the punishment of the fire. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us spouses and children that will be the comfort of our eyes and make us leaders of the righteous. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لَنَا وَلِوَالِدِينَا وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَوْمَ يَقُومُ الْحِسَابُ ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خيرا. With that, we have completed the Surah Al-Naziyat. Inshallah, we'll begin with the new surah tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum.